Mr. Willis, you went in 1988. How old were you at that time?
Wow. I was already old. I was 28 years old.
A lot of the people I speak with, I ask them because some of them are teenagers, and
Sure.
I kind of want to get a better understanding what was going on in that environment during that time.
Yeah, I mean, at 28, obviously it's a decision that's been thought through, and it's like, okay, this is what I want to do now, and so following instructions and everything at that time it was too easy, and it comes from how you're raised at home. So at being 28, and then you look at how old I am today, that was the intergeneration where whatever mom and dad said, you did it. So as I got into the Army, hey, whatever the drill sergeant said, I did it. 'Cause that's what time it was,
What made you decide to go in at 28 years old?
I really wanted to serve, and I've always loved traveling, and I really wanted to serve. I wanted to see the world for sure, because I kind of wanted to be a part of something really big. Either branch would have been fine, but I gravitated toward the Army because I had some family that had been in it as well. So being a part of it at the time was called a Big Green Machine, so I thought that was the way to go. And now, I played soccer and sports and all that, and it's a big team thing, the Army is, and the dirt, the mud and all that, so the Army just kind of suited me.
An extension of what you...
Yeah, what I did for Smith Cotton soccer.
What was basic training like?
A lot of physical conditioning, and then there's the mental side of it too, because now you got to figure today versus where we are, yesterday where we are today, how it was totally different. It was even a longer course, and so now with this generation of kids we have there, it's all altered a little bit and changed as opposed to when I was going through, but it was physical. And I think the prep from, even though I was 28, I mean, obviously playing basketball over the years and kicking the soccer ball around, all that really helped out because there's a lot of running involved. And so I think that was probably maybe the toughest part. The rest of it, following instructions, I can do this. If somebody told me just, take instructions from the tower, whatever they tell you to do, you do it. They're not going to tell you anything to hurt yourself. So, and that's...
Now, you did your basic training in South Carolina. Then where did you go from there?
My advanced individual training was in South Carolina also, the maintenance guy. And then I went to Fort Benning, Georgia for Airborne School. And from there, my first duty assignment was in Germany.
Now, you had said that Georgia was a pretty proud moment for you.
Yeah, I enjoyed being down Fort Benning, Georgia. There's a guy down there, this big old giant statue. His name was, Big Mike. So he said, and on the front of it says, "Follow me, follow me." That's the home of the infantry, and they and all the airborne excitement that goes with it, the aircrafts, the rush, the people, the singing, the cadence, and all that stuff. Yeah. When you finally get done and you're done with the school and you did your last jump, and some parents come up and pin wings on, or maybe you'll have someone else to come pin the wings on you. And so that was a pretty exciting time.
Kind of get goosebumps hearing you talk about that.
Yeah, it was quite a rush, and when you think about the ultimate high, I think that was probably one of the most ultimate. That was the number one jumper. I'll never forget that because the first guy standing in the door. And and he tapped me on. He says, "When I tap you on the leg, you need to jump, snap into that tight body position and count." So, and that's he was sitting there talking to me, pretty soon slaps me on the leg. I'm like, "Oh my God!" Out the door.
What goes through your head at that moment?
Well, he kind of kept my mind occupied on other stuff since I was going to be the number one jumper. That only happened one time in my whole career. So what's going through there while he was talking to me? He was distracting me actually, so I wouldn't think about too much. But basically, thereafter, it's thinking about all the things you got to do once you got your static line. There's a whole process. You hooked up to the static line. You stand here holding your static line. When they tell you to go, you got to hand the static line off to the jump master. Then you got to exit the aircraft. And you got to snap into the tight body position and count and make sure you got a canopy. When it opens up, if not, you got to use reserve. So you do have to be thinking. That's why I was saying motor skills, because just in case this thing up here doesn't open up, you got a safety. Thank God I never had to use that. I've seen people do that though. They've had to use the safety because their parachute didn't open up.
How many jumps did you take?
Altogether, throughout my whole career,
Yeah.
I only did like 55. So.
Would you go back and do it today?
Yeah, I would. Just for fun.
Mm.
Yeah. And I was a blessing that I never really ever got hurt.
Right.
But was it my time was to stop? Yeah. I mean, walk away physically in decent shape. Yeah, it was my time, to stop. So yeah, I mean, there's a risk involved with it, and then there's,
pretty big risk.
Yeah, but in all actually, there's a lot of safety in this because there's so many different safety checks, and then you very seldom, I talk about a guy using his safety to land and everything, but that doesn't happen that often. When you think about a sky full of about 500 paratroopers, and maybe out of 500 paratroopers, maybe one or two guys have to use their safety. You don't want to be that one, but it's nice to know you got it, just in case you have to use it. So.
Now, when you went to Germany,
Mm-hmm.
what were some of your duties? Where were you stationed over
I was
there?
stationed in Wiesbaden, Germany. Wiesbaden, Germany is, I would say that's probably east, it could be west of Frankfurt, I can't quite remember now. I think it's west of Frankfurt. Really nice small town. 12th Aviation Brigade was the unit that I was assigned to, which in Germany was experiencing itself. And I ended up doing a Desert Storm with those guys. So that was actually my first experience of doing combat. And the Aviation Brigade had the Apaches and the Black Hawks, and still I'm a maintenance guy, so they really didn't care about us too much because it was all about the helicopters until one of them goes down. And then I think we get over there and we all figured out they all can't get in the helicopter. Somebody's got to drive.
Yeah. So from Germany, you went to Desert Storm,
Mm-hmm.
and then how long were you there?
Desert Storm, I believe, that was only like 8 months of a Desert Storm, that tour. You had the shield and the storm, so
Right.
I participated in both.
Okay.
And it was probably about 8 or 9 months, about all. And after that, I came back to Germany because my tour of Germany was for 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a 3-year tour. And generally speaking, most folks will go over there, they'll do a year, and maybe they'll come back to the States and visit. And then some don't. Some will stay and tour the whole country. I mean, I toured quite a bit of Germany. And because I'm a motorcycle enthusiast, so I had a bike over there too. And after we completed the war, I come back and did a school. And then in '92, I ended up leaving and going to Fort Drum, which is in New York. So 10th Mountain Division.
From that experience, what were some memorable moments for you?
In Germany?
Yeah, being stationed overseas and being
Most
overseas.
people are going to talk about the beer, but I didn't.
Can't really do that.
Yeah, the beer was okay. I mean, it was a good time. And I think there's a conditioning again, and there's a couple of schools that I completed over there. I did I participated in this event called 9 Megan, and it's 25 miles a day for 4 days. And it's kind of a reenactment of an attack that we did back then, the World War guys did, because once they landed, they had to march 400 miles to get to this. Okay, so we kind of reenacted it, but we had to train for it, or as opposed to those guys didn't. They just hit the ground, and this is what you got to do. So I can't even imagine, because I know we trained as we prepared ourselves for practically almost 6 months. We'd go out, you start out marching maybe 5 miles, crease it, and eventually one day you got up to 25 miles. Now you know what 25 miles of road march is going to be like. Now you got to do it for 4 days. The thing about it is, they didn't have, I had boots and socks and uniforms and food and carbohydrates and water. Those guys didn't have that. I can't even imagine what they endured to do that. That's a tough bunch of folks.
As you're walking their steps, what's kind of going through your mind?
Yeah, going through is like, how do these guys do this? And then potentially, more likely, maybe running into the bad guy while you're doing this. So we even had a chance to prepare for it, and get ready for it, and and then when we got to the next stop after 25 miles, there was beer. I don't think they had that luxury.
No.
You know, so, and you got to prepare yourself for the next day. So you got to get, I mean, again, socks, you got to wash, you know, you got to get everything ready. You got to treat your feet and all that stuff. And I'm changing out boots. So I have a great deal of respect for World War II veterans and Korean War veterans. I mean, you know, what they went through in the Vietnam guys, man, that's, you know, they're just an incredible amount of courage and just strength and just to be able to do that. What an honorable bunch of guys back then, you know. I mean, that was one that really stuck out to me for sure, the war, and then that experience there at 9 Megan, trying to do that.
What was life like after Germany, after Desert Storm, Desert Shield, all of those things when you returned to the States? What was life like?
I mean, we know that at this point, you know, we all knew that it was like, okay, the country was behind us, you know, more than ever. We also feel like we didn't finish it. You know, some of us did. So then, as you look at it now, we went over there and we ended up doing what we possibly could have done in the first place when we were there, but we stopped at the Euphrates River. That's all the further I got. But you know, you look back on it then when maybe we could have pushed on through, and today's history would have been a little different. But I mean, for me, coming home was obviously after the folks, the family, and you know, all the stories, and you know, General Schwarzkopf had, you know, marched, you know, as an army in and out, and I tell you what, sometimes it was overwhelming, very overwhelming, and I've even ran into that after, you know, this latest conflict. But you know, people are so appreciative, you know, of a soldier, you know, an airman, servicemen, or men and women. And the thing about it, it's your neighbor, it's your brother, sister, daughter, whatever. I mean, that's who does this. You know, it's generally most of the people that are in the business, they're not rich. We're born uptown with a silver spoon. So a working group of folks that, you know, maybe something wasn't working for you and you decided to join. But like those guys back in some of them was drafted, they had no choice, they went and
made the best of
the situation. And so, I mean, they, you know, that's why I go back to you and say, hey, I praise those guys, I salute them, you know. But the coming home was great. It was fantastic, it really was. And you know, your family and friends, I've had the letters and all the stuff. I actually wrote a letter or two as well that kind of got posted and stuff like that.
And now you worked really post-military career, mm-hmm. You worked toward becoming a commandant, right?
No. Well, helping young adults. Mm-hmm. You know, so first sergeant business is the guy that's in charge of barracks. You know, he's in charge of soldiers. I'm in charge of cadets. The first sergeant is teaching and training and mentoring all the time, constantly. And sometimes he's got to be the bad guy. You got to raise a little hell too. It's kind of a combination of. Then you got to have compassion, you know, from time to time. I mean, so it kind of paralleled each other, you know, in a sense. So, is it my calling? Sometimes it seemed like it could have been, you know, that one thing that I was just maybe cut out to do, you know, just teaching young adults life skills. You watch a soldier as he or she comes in as a private in the Army, and you start to mold them, and you start to, you know, and then they conform to what's going on, and it goes from a job, you know, to a career, and then eventually it becomes a passion, to where, man, I get paid for this. Mm-hmm. You're paying me to do this? Yes. You know, so I'm getting up early in the morning, we're running, and we're having a good time, we're sweating, staying physically fit. You're traveling a little bit, you're going places, you're having a ball. But, I mean, but the other side of it is you may have to go to combat. And that's when it's time to, you know, in actuality, everything that you've trained to do is actually put to a test. It's kind of a test. So you've been doing this. We train on this. Now you need to understand that you have to trust that and have faith in that we have done what we're supposed to do. Commanders and other senior leaders have checked the block. This is where you need to be. So, and it kind of led to this. The young kids I see the lieutenants that are going to be commissioned here. I've had several of them throughout my career, so I kind of know what they're going to go through. And so molding them, I've given them a taste of it, because in the past here, I'm like the first sergeant they had as a commandant here. In the past, have always been commissioned officers. Commissioned officers are primarily a little more administrative type folks, but I'm the in the trenches kind of guy, because I'm on the enlisted side of the house with first sergeants, NCOs, sergeants. They're in the trenches. They're down there doing it. Commanders command, officers command. NCOs make it happen. We do things, and we learn about the soldiers, and we learn about the cadets. We know what's going on inside of them when maybe the commander doesn't know, unless we brief them and let them know. I know what's going on inside this kid deep, because we done got involved with them personally, and we know what makes them tick. I know that he's having problems. Maybe there's an emotional problem that took place in his life prior to coming to me as a soldier, and he needs treatment, he needs help, or whatever, so we can, because I need to know he's going to be okay when we go into combat, and that is part of getting to know the person. So it's really important. Communication is, such a factor. So yeah, there's a passion with it too, and then when it's all done, there's a finished product. And it's like, okay, I walk away, leaving the Army knowing that I touched several lives. And when you get them calling back and seeing how you're doing and all this stuff, then you did something right. And you got paid for it. So, and, it's not about the money, because the business itself has come a long ways. I know. I tell a Vietnam vet, I tell him what I make, he's like, what? You know what I got paid? So, I don't want to hear it, dude. And our country did that for us. The lobbyists and everything, and the different parties and what they invested into has done that for us. So it made it better for us. It made it easier for us to fight. You look at the technology that we've had to fight with in Iraq as compared to what those guys had in Vietnam and Korea and world. Oh my God, I can't even imagine. You can track a battle on a screen. They didn't have that. You got all the night vision devices we have. Like you hear them say, we own the night. Yep, we do. A lot of truth to that, because we can see what's going on at night.
Kind of just like you were talking about the trek across Germany.
Yeah.
Just makes you have a little bit more respect for the ones that have fought for us. Unbelievable. Spent some time in Somalia too. It was you guys all know it from Black Hawk down. Right.
It didn't end that way for me. I remember seeing the guys running out down the street at the end.
How did it end for you?
Well, for me, as that day ended or concluded, it was actually a very, very long day. I remember starting it out in church, and then it went through the night and into the next day. That next morning, I believe for Monday, sometimes Monday morning, I remember coming back to the base camp. So it was an all-night event. And how it ended for me was back into the chapel. I went back to the chapel after it was all over. I mean, that was one particular battle that night, that these guys got pinned down downtown Mogadishu off of National Street. And, they couldn't, the helicopter was down, and had a couple attempts to get in there, and it didn't get done. Eventually, after, some serious battles that took place and everything, we finally got up in there and kind of gave them a ride out. So, the Rangers don't want to talk about that. Hey, you want to ride, man? I'll get on my 5-ton.
Kind of
that's not a glorious story to write a movie on. Come on.
Yeah.
that the maintenance guys and the supply guys and the signal corps, you know, we had a little convoy, combination convoy, and pulled up in there so we can get those guys to get on and get out. And the movie, you know, obviously there's some true stories to that too. So, but
Kind of glorifies it a little
yeah, support package, you know.
Yeah.
So it's a little different, but either way, any way you shake it up and down, it was kind of a rough time there. It was kind of an ugly time. So it began in chapel for me and ended in chapel by myself that morning. So I just went back there just to kind of decompress all that I really had experienced and seen. So that's kind of how I dealt with it.
What would you like the younger generation to know about serving in the military?
Well, being honorable, being honorable, and don't take nothing for granted. You know, just be appreciative for sure. You know, and stay healthy, stay physically fit. You know, as I sit here with you today, 51 years old, and or young, however you want to put it, the biggest thing is staying healthy. Had I not stayed healthy, I wouldn't have probably not been a first sergeant. I'd been maybe a master sergeant, but not a first sergeant. Because the first sergeant's got to lead. He's going to run. He's got to be in the runs. He's got to make the runs. He's got to take all the physical challenges. Because if they're gonna get up on a rappel tower, they want to see if the first sergeant can do it.
Yeah.
So
lead by example.
Yeah, is he gonna do it? So physically fit. Keep your credit straight. Keep your credit straight. Do not do drugs. Yeah, you're gonna sip a little bit every now and then. Don't be excessive with it. You know, you cannot get a DUI. You can't get you can't do that. You can't if you got thoughts of ideations and stuff like that, you got to go get help for it. But unfortunately, if we find out that you had that and it's in your record, the system is going to put the brakes on you. You know, so you gotta be happy. You gotta have some happiness. You gotta get something out of it. And then if you're happy and you're the leader, then it'll trickle down to the rest of them. You know, if you got confidence, and you gotta win them over. They got to know that you care about them. You know, I'm in the business of taking care of cadets, and that's all the way down to what's going on with them, because that's all I know. Top trained to take care of soldiers. So it's all the way down. If everybody's problem is the biggest problem. So if that cadet's got a problem or that soldier's got a problem, that's the biggest one. You know, sometimes your stuff's put on hold, particularly as the first sergeant commander, because you're dealing with everybody else's, circumstances or issues or problems. I don't know. That's the biggest thing with me with these young adults. I mean, be responsible.